Um, a lot of that was focused on kind of elections. But let's talk a little bit about activism as well as what Green Party folks do when they're in office. Um, I think there's kind of a misunderstanding that a lot of change has to come top down, right? That you've got to get folks, you got to win the president, or you got to get people in Congress or whatever to get change. And there's actually a lot that Greens can do starting from local levels. Obviously, we do have to work our way up to national policy, even global policy, to deal with threats like climate change. But we can start with a lot of significant change at local levels. So here's a few examples of what Greens have done when they've been in positions like local offices. So Jason West, who was a former Green mayor of New Paltz, New York, was actually one of the first officials to officiate same-sex marriages in New York before it was legal. So you saw Greens at the forefront of the same-sex marriage debate, where they were doing this while Democrats were stepping away and didn't want to get involved in that. Promoting LGBT rights has been an important part of the Green history. Another cool action from a Green was Gail McLaughlin, who was a mayor of Richmond, California. Made some police reforms, and what I think was especially interesting that we should take note of is used eminent domain, which is the laws that allow government to kind of seize land. A lot of times it's used very negatively, where government will seize land for like an oil pipeline or something like that, right? And so this can be very serious, but the script was flipped in this case. Eminent domain was used to seize houses to prevent foreclosures and evictions. So houses were seized so that the families could be kept in those houses during the 2008 housing crisis. So that was a really cool way to use government positively and effectively in order to prevent homelessness, to counteract that housing crisis. So I think it'd be great for more Greens nationwide to think about tools that could be used at local levels like this to address issues of poverty and homelessness and whatnot. The Reverend Edward Pinckney was a Green community organizer in Michigan who fought against the Whirlpool Corporation for tax evasion and the capture of local government. So that got a lot of attention nationwide about that, and which eventually led to some reforms on taxes and whatnot for corporations. Sherry Honkala, who was the 2012 Green vice presidential candidate, is a big homeless advocate in Philadelphia, and founded the Poor People's Human Economic Rights Campaign, which does a number of really awesome trainings on how to address homelessness and economic issues. I think she calls it the Poor People's Army or something. And so if you want to look that up and find the trainings or how to support it, that'd be great. One thing I liked, she also ran for state representative one year. And one thing I liked about that campaign was she said, if I get elected and I have an office, I'm gonna turn my office into housing so that everyone in Harrisburg has to see it and until they deal with it, right? Like, we're not going to have people on the street if they don't want people to be living in my office. Then they're going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to actually give housing for everyone, So that's a radical way that you can really talk about using the powers of your office again. And finally, Jill Stein, who was the 2016 presidential candidate for the Green Party, opened up a number of lawsuits in a few different states regarding the election system, and in particular, several states, including my state of Pennsylvania, had electronic voting systems where there was no paper trail. Like, you had to just hope that the machine was giving you the correct number of votes, which is a terrible place to be if you want, if you want a fair democracy that isn't going to be easily swayed, easily rigged. So Jill Stein's lawsuit in Pennsylvania, actually, it was held up in court for a while, but a few years ago, it was finally settled, and the state agreed to update its laws and adopt paper ballots that are auditable. So if there's any question, they can be revisited and recounted. So that was a gigantic win. That we had our first audible paper ballots in 2020. So, when Donald Trump went running around saying you can't trust the votes, they're rigged and everything like that. Well, they actually were auditable and more trustworthy paper ballots in Pennsylvania, in part because of the Green Party. It wasn't because the Democrats were pushing this. The Democrats were actually fighting that lawsuit and didn't want to make that reform at first. So, they would have enabled Donald Trump to go and claim that, more states had problems if they didn't do that. So, that's an example of a Green who wasn't even in office, using lawsuits and such to get change. So I think it's great to note, Greens that have done really great things, both with their activism and their electoral offices. And, folks that want to join the Green Party and run for office even should consider how to use your action campaigns and your electoral campaigns to build change like this.